Welcome to Scoop Order. This is one of the most interesting shows of all time. Mike Vrabel fired today. Quinshon Judkins, maybe the best tailback in the country, commits to Ohio State. Couple 5-stars potentially jumping in the boat. Loaded show. Staff changes on the way. There is a lot to talk about. Gonna take your questions as always. We're gonna get right into it. If you guys have super chats, you guys have questions you need answered, send us that super chat. We'll get right to it. We'll drop the show and get those questions answered for you guys as always. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. What an incredible day or 2 days for Ohio State. Going to bring Nevadabuck in right now. I'm going to get right to a story that we broke 2 nights ago. Quinshon Judkins is a guy, I watched about 4 of his tapes today, his all 22 tapes against Bama, LSU, Georgia. He is a freak of nature. He might be better than Trey Henderson. I don't know. But I think they're the top 2 running backs in the country. Nevada, your reaction when we got Quinshon Judkins, because this is the kind of stuff that usually doesn't happen for Ohio State, but this guy is a superstar. What was your reaction?
Yeah, it was kind of same reaction I had when we got Davison last year, which was kind of stunned disbelief that we got a guy, because like you said, these aren't the kind of kids that we typically get, especially when you've got Trey Henderson in your room. And you know, I still want to see and hear from Trey that he's returning, so that we really get a chance to see thunder and lightning there in the backfield. But boy, this is a big get. Anyway you slice it. You're just a tremendous running back. When you see him play, I mean, he can do everything well. A guy that's going to go on to the NFL and be a terrific running back in the NFL as well. So, yeah, I just, it's kind of a pinch me moment for Ohio State, because you just typically don't get guys like this in the portal. And this was a big one. This answered any running back questions that we have going into 2024. They've been answered resoundingly with this commitment. So big day for Ohio State.
Yeah, and like if you look at some of the stat lines for the season, they play LSU, a shootout, 55-49. They won that game. He had 33 carries, 177 yards, a touchdown. You see him against A&M. A&M, for as bad as they were, they had some dudes on their D-line and on defense, some really good guys on their front seven. 23 carries, 102, 3 touchdowns. He's a horse, man. He had 15 touchdowns last year, 1,100 yards. And the teams, you look at his schedule, he played at Bama, LSU, Arkansas, Auburn, A&M, Georgia, Mississippi State, Penn State. So, I mean, those are real teams with real dudes, and he was really productive. I'm going to flick his film on here in a second, but I'm just floored that we got a kid like this. Again, shout out to the foundation. They've been killing it. They added Will Howard, J.J. Smith. Here's some high school tape of him. I had to put on some Pike Road High School when he was at Montgomery, Alabama. Shout out Jerry Cook and 4-star Freightliner. This guy wears number 4, so that's an NIL deal waiting to happen. But this kid's a freak, dude. And I'm telling you, I watched his Bama tape. He looks good. And sometimes, when you're at Ole Miss, you're slightly undermanned when you play teams like Bama and LSU. Like Ole Miss can cheat and get a couple good players, but they generally don't get the types of guys that like LSU and A&M and Bama get, Georgia. So, up against it, their O-line's usually at a deficit versus those D-lines. But this guy runs hard. He's tough. He's got great balance. He's got a lot of meat on the bone. And I think that Davison and even Tylen Malone were big helps to us getting this kid. They did run Wildcat with him. This is a shot of it in high school. I saw Ole Miss run that as well. So that would be something I would welcome in the goal line situations where snap him the ball. He's got a nose for the end zone. Again, he had 15 touchdowns last year. 17 total, 2 receiving touchdowns. So super excited to see what this guy could do in Ryan Day's offense. Nevada, where do you rank if you had Will Howard and you get Trey back and you get Judson, where do you rank these guys in terms of the talent of the most talented backfields you've seen at Ohio State? Because for a 1-2 tandem at running back, I can't think of a better one. And I played with Beanie and Pitt. Beanie obviously was a first rounder. Pitt was a third rounder, but these guys could both be first rounders potentially if they have big years. But your thoughts on where these guys could rank in terms of talent as a 1-2 punch?
I mean, it'll be right up there. I mean, if they're not the best, you're definitely going to be splitting hairs, talking about guys that are better than them. But you talk about a guy like you said that had 15 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns, and then you add Will Howard's 9 rushing touchdowns on top of his passing touchdown. And we're adding a lot of offense to the
No.
room right now. And on top of taking Alabama's starting center, on top of getting a really, really good run blocking tight end, which is kind of an underrated asset for an offense like Ohio State's. And you just see how productive Ohio State's been, in NIL. And again, I know NIL is a turnoff for people, and we don't like to spend too much time talking about it because we see the kind of glazed looks that go on. But I really got to call it the foundation. I mean, they've done a great job since they've got back involved with NIL. Ohio State started cooking again, man. Ohio State was kind of sucking air there for a little bit, and it wasn't looking good when it was just 1870, and then 1870 started attacking Ryan Day through some of the writers on their 11 Warriors site, and like I said, I got to give again, I don't have any allegiance to the foundation. Don't know the guys there. They're we're not a sponsor, we're not a source, we're not affiliated with them, but I can see what I can see, and I can see when we're getting players and we're getting recruits and we're keeping guys in, and I'm hearing consistently from people on the team about how they're stepping up and making stuff happen. Well, that's what I'm all about. So I really want to tip my hat when excellence is happening, and they're doing an excellent job right now.
Yeah, and again, like this is from their little thing. The foundation last night was with JJ Smith and JJ's dad, JJ's uncle Geno Smith, who's obviously related to Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks. Brett Guest from South Florida Express. But some of those guys in this photo, Tommy Howman, Bill Lewis, Brian, those are real dudes, like real money. It's like serious money guys. And that's who's behind the foundation. It's not just B Shot and Cardell. It's like some serious guys. And they do things the right way, and they're big time business guys. And I think that's why they're smoking the competition right now. And it's not, they signed Will Howard today, signed JJ Smith. They're going to sign Quinshon Judkins. Judkins. It's a done deal. I mean, so, again, I have no allegiance, but I know what I see, and I see production, and I'm just happy because, a kid like JT Tuimoloau asked for a huge amount of money. It was around $4 million to come back for another year. He's been offered around half of that to stay. And again, I know people get upset about NIL, but if we don't have NIL, he's out the door. But there's a good chance he's going to stick around. Now, he could declare tonight, and I could be a total liar, and it might not be enough money for him. But a lot of these guys, like in the past years when we had these mass exodus to the NFL, these 3-and-out guys are just, they couldn't wait to get out of Columbus. They were tired of living in poverty. Now they actually get some real money. They can stay. And again, people don't pay to see the coaches. They don't pay to see the administrators or the athletic director. They pay to see the players. So the players should participate in that. It gives them a little security, take care of mom a little bit, whatever. And so I like that. I mean, that's the part of NIL that I think, people don't understand is for some of these kids, you give them a chunk of change and they feel a lot more comfortable staying in college as opposed to 4 years ago where it was all or nothing. Either I make, my scholarship check, which is a menial living, or I make NFL money. And, again, I was in the NFL for a few years. The NFL money is fantastic. It's way better than what you make in college. But if you kind of have that happy medium, it's kind of nice, especially when you're guys like JT and Jack Sawyer and Tyleek who could go out and dominate for their senior years and get some goals accomplished, go win the national championship, go beat Michigan, go win the Big Ten, and you have some pocket change. You have a little bit of security, and you could get an insurance policy, whatever. I think it's fantastic. I love NIL, and I love that the foundation is dominating the space and really crushing the competition. I don't think 1870 is going to be around much longer at this point. Clay all day. Appreciate you. Thank you for the deuce. Dropping nuts on reigning champs next year. I agree. Again, man, I give that kid credit, man. I give Quinshon Judkins a lot of credit, man, because he announced his commitment literally right after the game when Harbaugh's on the podium. He said, I'm coming to Ohio State. And again, we had it the night before, but that's really good timing because I think that it was kind of like, injecting our fan base with some Zoloft or something because I think they were down in the doldrums about Michigan. But Michigan's going to get with the nuclear strike. The title's not going to count. And our team is going to be loaded. Dude, if I'm an offensive lineman and we get this guy and Trey and Will Howard, I'm like, oh my God, Christmas, I don't even need anything for Christmas the rest of my life because I've got three guys that are powerful, freaky type guys that can run the rock, win games in the cold. Will Howard, from the people I talked to, is an excessively tough guy. He's a bright guy, made a big impression on a lot of the guys that he's already met in Columbus. So very happy about that. Again, I've watched a lot of his film too, and I love everything about his mannerisms, everything about how he carries himself. And I think he's going to be a massive upgrade at quarterback. And again, you guys see what wins in college football. Like, look at the two quarterbacks who are in the championships, like J.J. McCarthy. A lot of mock drafts have him going in the first round. I don't agree with that. I know Nevada doesn't agree with that, but he's a potential first round guy, and Penix is probably not, because he's 25 years old or whatever. But I mean, he was a Heisman finalist, and we didn't have that level of quarterback play this year, and it killed us, frankly. Jermaine Goins, thanks for the $5, brother. Appreciate you. If running backs coach Tony Alford is let go, Eddie George should be the next running backs coach. True or false? Well, Eddie is already a head coach, so would he want to take? I don't think it's a lateral move to go from being a smaller school head coach to being a major school running back coach. I think that's probably a downgrade. Nevada, would you agree with that? If you go from, I think he's at Tennessee State or Middle Tennessee. I think he's at Tennessee. He's at one of those. But like, to go from being a head coach at a school like that to being a running back coach at Ohio State, I don't think that that's necessarily an upgrade or even a lateral move. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic. But I like the thinking of, ex-Ohio State running back as running back coach. I think for Ohio State, that's always been a tried and true formula, is having guys that really understand what it's like to play at Ohio State, the pressures of being at Ohio State, how to recruit to Ohio State, what the fan base expects at Ohio State. And I think you can't have enough of those guys run the program. Look at the guys that have been really successful, like a Brian Hartline, and he was fit that role. Like, so there was nothing about him that screamed elite coach. He was just an ex-player that was GA, and then he turns out to be one of the greatest assets that we've ever had, and certainly one of the best recruiters that we've ever had. So, finding another Ohio State running back like that could do that, I'd be all in for that.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that's appealing about Eddie is he's actually been a coach. Because sometimes, we get these things that make my eyes roll. So when you get rid of Perry Eliano, and people are like, well, we should make Mike Doss the safety coach or Malcolm Jenkins. I'm like, these guys got to prove they can coach. Coaching is not for the faint of heart. It's a tough gig, long hours, whatever. But, Eddie's coached for a few years. He hasn't had much success, but, could he be a running backs coach here? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he could be. But he at least understands the grind. I don't know if he knows the D1 grind, like the high D1 grind, because there's differences, like the different levels. It's a lot of hours, but when you're at Ohio State, man, every day is 4th and 1 because it's a pressure cooker. You lose one game at Ohio State, your dog doo-doo. But Eddie gets that, and Eddie is a guy that I revere. I think he's got talent. I'm sure he's the guy that in his dreams would love to be the head coach at Ohio State, and I'm sure a lot of these guys that are in the profession that are Buckeyes want that job. But would he want to be a running back coach under Ryan Day? I don't know. I wish he had more ties to Atlanta and Florida, just in terms of the recruiting, Texas. But I'm sure he could develop those. But would he want to go on the road and grind? Maybe, maybe not. But it'd be really interesting to see. But I love the idea. But I just don't know if he'd want to go from being a head coach to being a position coach. Coordinator, maybe. Position coach, probably not. McLaren, 123 1000. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for always being on here. Thank you for the 20, brother. Hey, Kirk in Nevada. I've been watching highlights of Quinshon Judkins, and I'm real excited. Dude, he does run hard. He says he runs hard. His feet are always chopping and always falls forward. He also reminds me of Kareem Hunt. He reminds me of a better, quicker, slightly smaller Carlos Hyde. Carlos ended up being a second-round pick. 2013, he was fantastic for Ohio State, his capstone year, senior year. But that's what this kid reminds me of. He's a horse. I think he's an asset in the goal line. There's a lot of times where we get stuffed in the goal line. This guy will get it in. I love everything about this kid. He's one of my favorite tapes I've watched. Again, I was watching his Bama film earlier. I was watching Georgia. I watched the good and the bad. I watched the LSU game where he dominated. So it's fun to watch guys like this that are that are here. And again, the most amazing thing about this kid is he's from Montgomery, Alabama, and he didn't end up at Bama, and he didn't end up at Auburn. He ended up at Ohio State. So thank God for the foundation and these NIL, their NIL work, because and thank God for Davison and Ty. We got a couple guys that are from Ole Miss that came up here and said, "Hey, this place is lit. This place is live. This isn't a cow town." There's a lot of these kids come up from the South and they come to Ohio and they come to Columbus and they think it's going to be, dirt roads and cows walking across the street and, girls riding John Deere tractors to work and around the campus. And it's not like that at all. So, these kids get up here and they're like, this place is actually pretty cool. This is a real city, a lot of good stuff going on. It's fun, good nightlife, like whatever. So there's stuff to do around the city. And I think that, when you have Davison up here and some of these guys are saying, hey, dude, this place is actually sweet. Love the coaching staff. Ohio State kind of can give you everything you want. And I think that that's important. Nevada, is there a running back that Quinshon Judkins reminds you of?
You hit some good compare. I'd say like a more talented Mike Weber. Like I like Mike Weber, you know what I'm saying? But like a more talented, quicker, more explosive Mike Weber. But no, he's just talented. This kid has been the rushing attack for Ole Miss, and like I said, when you go through their schedule, man, it's no joke. They're playing the big boys week in and week out, and this guy produced against everybody. And I think a combination of him, we've talked about it in the show yesterday, but the schedule for Ohio State just got a lot tougher as the Big Ten championship game is now 1 versus 2. No more of those gimmies in the Big Ten championship game. So you could conceivably be going on a run of, Michigan, Oregon, number 12 team, top 12 team, top 4 team, top 2 team for 5 weeks in a row. And you better have a couple running backs. And, anybody who follows the NFL sees how, I can't think of a running back in the NFL that didn't miss time this year with an injury. And so you need at least a pair if you're going to navigate a schedule like that, because, that's a big boy NFL type schedule that we're going to have to be going. And the end of it's going to be, heavyweight after heavyweight after heavyweight. So can't have enough players like this. So huge kid.
I totally agree. Josh Dillon, thanks for the 5. I don't know if that's Kucherov or who's in your photo. Dave Andrechuk, maybe back in the day. I'm kidding. How long do you think Scum gets to keep their fraudulent title? Nevada still on target for March, you believe?
March, April is when the notice of allegations should come down from the NCAA on this. That's what that's everything that we're hearing from the broadcast guys. That's what they're expecting. That's when they're expecting it. And then it's just a procedure. They have a chance to, respond, and then there's a response to the response and things. It's just a procedure that's going to go through. But I think the next big shoe drops in the March, April timeframe, and then we'll really have a really good sense for where the NCAA is going on this. But yeah, I fully expect their title to be vacated. And as I was thinking about that, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this in the pre-show, so this isn't like one of those setup bits or like Ryan's Roses on Kiss FM or anything like that. But has there? I was trying to think about like a worse national champion than Michigan, and I really had to go back. I'm thinking maybe BYU in '84 or something like that. Like that's. Michigan's the worst national champion that I can think of in like the last 40 years. It's just. Amazing how mediocre they are, and they won the national title.
I might just be, and I'm sure you just say I'm a bitter whatever, but I'm when I played in the national championship, I had to play like LSU, who had two top 5 picks on their D line, and a quarterback that played 10 years in the NFL, and in Louisiana. And then we played Florida, who had 2 first-round DNs, and I was like, those teams would have killed that Michigan team last night. Killed them. Do you think they're going to run on Florida or LSU? No. But they get a Pac-12 team that's soft as butter, and they're not gap sound. And within the first 3 seconds of the game, you can tell these guys are going to fit the run real good. And they give up like 50 yards of carry in the first quarter or whatever it was. So it's sometimes you're just lucky. And Michigan, and again, this is why I think people are, Ohio State fans are so haunted because, like, if we complete the pass and we beat Michigan, we're playing Washington. And I mean, that Washington team choked out its own vomit in that game. I mean, Penix had the worst game of his career. The lights were too bright for the whole team. And they were the beneficiaries of some huge calls. Like, again, like I thought the holding calls were egregious, but, Michigan was smart, man. Those guys, I mean, they don't cheat, or they do cheat, but they also don't. They're all wearing white gloves out there, so when they're ripping the crap out of their jerseys, they're not getting the holding calls. Either the officials were asleep or told not to call it, or they couldn't see it because of the gloves. But whatever it was, like there were some of the most egregious holding calls I've ever seen in my life, and I'm a holding expert, especially for the offensive line. And I couldn't believe some of the stuff with the jersey tears that they got away with because those are no brainers. And then they call the one on the right tackle, 73 from Washington, who just took a terrible pass set. I'd have killed him if I was his line coach, just because it was so. You don't need to set that far out on a guy who's that slow. Their two ends stink. Like Michigan's ends stink. Like I'm sorry. Like the guys that when I played, they had Lamar Woodley, who was like a second round, like a high second round pick, should have been a first round pick. Like they had Brandon Graham, who's still in the league playing. Like they had real ends back then. Those guys stink. Their interior guys are really good, but their ends are just guys. And I'm not scared to say that. And so, like, the way their tackles were playing those guys, I'm like, you guys don't need to be that nervous about it. But it is what it is. But, yeah, that was, it was like watching the two tallest midgets. And, Michigan is the national champions, and they beat a team that, frankly, would have lost every national championship game I've ever seen versus the one or the two. But, again, that's just my opinion. Jason Curtis, 6 for the 5. Just imagining a split back set with those two guys. Wow. Yeah, I don't know how much Ryan will use that because I don't think either of them was a lead blocker. We did some of that with Chip this year where we had Chip play some fullback, but I think that these guys are going to be dynamic. I think they have different skill sets, and again, they're literally the two best running backs in the country. So you get Trey back, you get these guys both back, man. It is going to be great. And again, like we've had issues at running back with durability, not just Trey. Basically, every running back we've had has gotten hurt. So you need a lot of good running backs in that room because you're going to be calling on Dallin Hayden. You're going to be calling on James Peoples. Like, guys got to step up to the plate. And we had a mass exodus with Chip taking off to Kentucky, Evan Pryor going to Cincinnati. Mayan went pro. I have no idea why. So it's going to be interesting to see how the splits unfold. But I think that Trey is a mature kid, and I think Quinshon's a mature kid. And these guys realize, like, look, load management is a thing. And instead of getting beaten to a pulp, you can go somewhere and split carries, and you're healthier for the league. You get your touches, get your yards per carry up, and both guys can eat. And I think that's going to be really exciting to watch both these guys. But yeah, that'll be wonderful if they figure out some stuff to do with these guys both in the game at the same time. Big Red Buck, thank you for the 5. So when we talk about developing O linemen, when does this process happen? During the spring? Nevada, do you want to take this one?
You're the O-line expert, man.
I figured you don't want to talk. Well, if you guys send it a thing about how to order DoorDash, you can hit up Nevada. But on this one, I'll probably take that one. Is that fair? How was your DoorDash last night? Did you have like a steak and potato? I think I had tacos, and they were good actually.
Yeah, my steak was so good. I was so hungry after we got done to the thing, and I felt bad for you because I was like kind of
full, my god.
Couldn't quite eat all the steak. I ordered like the chocolate torte for dessert as well. So
you gave it to all the dogs.
I did. I cut it up.
All the dogs. There you go.
Dogs, so, but I digress.
That's how he keeps the dogs quiet during the podcast. He feeds them steak. I like that. So talking about developing offensive linemen in the offseason, some of these guys need to get in the weight room yesterday. Some of these guys gotta do more than the prescribed work. They gotta get in that squat rack. They gotta start developing their legs. They gotta run on the underwater treadmill. They gotta get on the Stairmaster. The Stairmaster is my favorite form of cardio of all time, just because you can really develop your lower body strength. You can get good cardio in, but you don't hurt your knees. You build up your quads. I used to do that thing religiously at Ohio State, and they have this underwater treadmill there that's great. And I used to run on that thing every day because you could run 20 half gassers on that and you never get sore. The hard part about running on turf when you're a big guy is your ankles get sore, your knees get sore, hamstrings. And then, if you go do extra cardio or extra running on turf, and then the next day Mickey's going to break you off, then your legs are going to be dead and you're going to look like trash. So that underwater treadmill is a nice happy medium because you can get your lungs up, you can get your gas up. I always say it's like getting your gas tank full. If you can run forever and your wind's good, then you can play forever. So I always tell these guys to get your cardio up. Don't be scared to run. Anthony Munoz used to run miles and miles and miles. He's probably the best tackle that's ever lived. And he was a big runner. And again, most big guys aren't big runners because they're big and it's hard to run. So you got to go find joy in the painful stuff that is being an offensive lineman, which is running. No big fat guy likes to go running, but you got to do it a lot. And if you want to be great, like you can't get tired. So some of these guys, I tell these guys, and again, I was always very blunt with some of these guys when I was coaching. And even when I was playing, I would go in the weight room, and I'm from the school of AJ Hawk, and AJ would lift after practice every day. And then so I started lifting after practice every day, not with AJ, but around AJ, just kind of copy what he was doing. Because I thought, like, well, this is what, I was like, well, AJ can do it, and he's a starter, and he's a year older than me. And I was like, I will start doing it. And so I started doing it, and then I started having a little crew, and it was funny. I had a crew of guys doing it, and then our head trainer said, you can't be doing this with these guys because they're going to get sore and hurt and tired. And he's like, they're not all built like you. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's because they don't do anything. They're fat turds. They got to like become built like me and become grinders and workers. And I was like, that little extra 25 minutes in the weight room ain't gonna hurt nobody, but that's kind of what it takes. And then, for some of these guys like Carson Hinsman, like he's got to live in the squat rack. He's got to really develop his legs, really push it, because, they kind of prescribe what they want you to lift, but you got to lift more. And you got to get stronger. And, for these linemen, like if they're in pass protection, man, they really got to develop a base, and that's heavy hand cleans. That's squatting. That's, you got to have stopping power if a guy bull rushes you. And some of these guys don't have that. And some of these guys are really strong guys, but they don't play like it. So they got to work their hand placement. Again, I wasn't real big on hitting the sled because I thought it was a waste of time, but you just got to develop your lower body strength, especially, and do some specific, close grip bench stuff. At the Woody Haze, they have literally like 10 million different machines that you can use to get strong. And most of them you don't need a spotter with. They have every machine you could ever dream of. And I used to tell guys that. I'm like, look, you could come in here by yourself and get as strong as you want, but you got to show up and do it. And some of those guys took that to heart, and a lot of the guys didn't. But again, that's the difference. Is like if you want to be a great lineman, if you're fast, strong, and in tremendous shape from a cardio perspective, you're going to be way better. Because there's never been an offensive lineman that was like, man, I wish I wasn't so strong. Man, I wish I wasn't so fast. Man, I wish I wasn't in such great shape. Because like if you're strong as a lineman, your life it's the bee's knees. Like everything in the world is easier when you're way stronger than the guy you're going against. But that's just my opinion. But honestly, the process, it starts like today. Like these guys should be going in there today, doing what Mick prescribes, and then doing more. Because again, if you just want to be a guy, then do what Mick prescribes. If you want to be great, do more. Because all the guys that I were around that were good, they did way more. Charles Leonard, thanks for the 5. What's the latest on the coaching changes? I think the more changes are coming in the next week. Obviously, I've heard the two biggest names I've had the biggest conflicts on in terms of information are JT Tuimoloau and Cory Dennis. I've heard really good people tell me Cory Dennis is coming back, which is hard to believe, and I love Cory. And then JT, I've heard people say he's out the gate, and then I had a guy today come back who really knows him says it looks like he's coming back. So again, this is part of the tough part about the gig is you have to consider the sources, consider what do they know, who do they know, how accurate is it, and things change like crazy, because again, I think with the coaching staff stuff, people are like, well, who are the names of the potential new coaches? I'm like, well, I don't know. It depends on who Ryan Day brings in as an offensive coordinator, because he might say there might be some coordinator that he falls in love with that he's going to offer a bunch of money to and says, well, here's the deal. I want to bring two of my own guys or one of my own guys or whatever. And I think that, if Matt Guriani shows up as our new safeties coach because Jim Knowles has added that much credit in Ryan's eyes, then it's probably kind of to make amends for the fact that Jim Knowles got hired and then Ryan Day basically hired his entire staff. Like he hired the 2 secondary guys that Jim Knowles didn't even know, which is kind of odd. And by firing Perry Eliano, potentially, you could be bringing, give him a slot to bring in one of his guys, or do the right thing and promote James Laurinaitis and make Tim Moulton the secondary coach. But again, there's a lot of different ways that could go. Again, I think that you probably want a safeties and a corners coach, but I think Tim Moulton could handle the entire back end and have Jim Knowles help him out. Nevada, you have anything on the coaching changes?
No, been digging. The one thing I want to talk about. There's been a stuff that's been put out a bunch of times about James Laurinaitis not being undecided about whether or not he wanted to be a full-time coach or whatever it is, and like I know you have strong feelings about that, but James wants to be a coach. That's why James is doing this. And so I keep seeing that coming out. I see it on the internet. I hear people talk to me about it from other podcasts or from other things. They're saying, well, they're not sure if James wants to do this, and they're trying to win on James. No, James. I mean, Kirk, have you heard anything different than that, other than James wants to be a coach?
All right, so I'm just gonna lay it out there. So anyone that says that James Laurinaitis doesn't want to be a coach, or he's worried about the time restrictions, or he's scared to go on the road recruiting because he's got a wife and 3 daughters, they're the dumbest human beings on this earth. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. James is 37 years old. He's been in coaching for 2 years. He's in the NFL for 10 years. He knows what it is to be a coach at a major level. This isn't some oh my God, I came from high school where you work for 20 hours a week, and I'm in college working 80. I don't know if I can do it. Dude, when you're a grad assistant, man, even when the coach is on the road, you're still in the Woody Hayes for 10 hours a day. Just because the coach is on the road doesn't mean you get to stay home and play Call of Duty. I mean, you're still there. You're just not on the road. You're not building anything when you're stuck in the office. And I think James, as a young coach, and he's not even young anymore. He's 37. I mean, he's 2 years younger than I am. He's the same age as Brian Hartline. And this is just from my own viewpoint. If I'm sitting in James's shoes and I'm in that staff room and I'm looking around at like Keenan Bailey and Cory Dennis and even Brian Hartline, and a lot of these guys that are in that room, James was a better player, was a captain, was a better NFL guy, has better connections, would murder it as a recruiter, and he's sitting around making pinto beans as a GA versus guys that aren't anywhere near Parker Fleming, who's making $500,000, and James is making pinto beans, and he's got three young daughters and a wife and a mouth to feed. And I know he's made millions in the NFL, but he's not doing it as a charity. He's not doing it to audition to potentially be a coach. He wants to be a full-time coach. I would bet my life, my house, I would take every dime I could ever get from every bank on earth and bet that James wants to be a full-time coach. He has big ambitions to be a coordinator, a head coach. Like, this isn't a game to him, So I see people write that, and I know that it has to be some sort of a stupid narrative coming from some people that are dumb inside the Woody Hayes, and it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And honestly, James would be a fantastic position coach. He'd be a fantastic coordinator. He'll be a fantastic head coach, because I've been around a lot of guys, and you ain't fooling me. You can fool a lot of people. You ain't fooling me. I mean, I've been around guys like him and AJ Hawk are the two guys that I was teammates with that I hold in the highest regard. Those guys were aces in every single facet, as people, players, work ethic, everything it takes to be a great coach. And honestly, it's not like Vrabes. Like Vrabel, monster on the field, monster on the practice field, monster in the weight room, monster as a coach, monster as a recruiter, getting Joey Bosa. So again, I don't know where that comes from. It's idiotic, because James, I was a GA and I was like 26, and, you feel like a scrub because most GAs are 23, 24. James is 37. When you're 37, I mean, dude, you're not trying to be a GA. Most guys his age, Lincoln Riley was a head coach at like 34, and again, you're not, comparison is the thief of joy. I get that. But dude, take the chains off the boy. Let the boy go recruit. Let the boy go make that money. Because I'm telling you, you put him on the road, oh God. You talk about a monster on the defensive side of recruiting, James Laurinaitis. I think he'd be every bit as good as Brian Hartline. Every bit. And again, I'm biased. I was a captain with James, but I know his character, I know his work ethic, And I know he's not there just to screw around. Because again, being a GA, you're still working 60, 70 hours a week. It ain't like you're some volunteer guy. I mean, you're there at that building every day. And you got to go make him the dude. Go give him something to write his name on. Say, okay, the linebackers are yours now, James. Okay, we're going to, the special teams. Again, I'd make him the special teams coordinator. All right, James, you get to run special teams. You get to run punt return, kickoff return. Those are yours, plus linebackers. And again, you can call me crazy, but Parker Fleming was a quarterback in college, and he barely played at the little dinky school he went to. James Laurinaitis was a special teamer the day he got to Ohio State, developed into an All-American as a sophomore, knows punt, knows kickoff. And the thing about like Luke Fickell back in the day is Luke played those guys on special teams. Like AJ Hawk was on punt as a senior, as an All-American Butkus candidate. James Laurinaitis was on like the punt team as a senior. So it wasn't like we didn't take it serious when we had Tress and Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell ran the punt team. He had his best guys on there. It wasn't like it was some chore or some, oh no, like the poor, bad, crappy players are on punt. We had our best guys out there. And it's kind of something I used to love because our punt teams were awesome and kind of set the tone for the whole organization that, hey, if AJ Hawk can be on punt team, it ain't too big for any of y'all. And it's kind of like when Urban would have like Terry McLaurin, who's making $20 million a year in the league right now as a receiver, was on punt team as a senior, as a gunner, and Johnny Dixon and some of those guys that were just great players, Paris Campbell. We had guys that were big time guys that were on punt, because that's how we value special teams. But James wants to be a coach. And again, I think that of all the guys, if you said, Kirk, you could add one former Buckeye to the staff in a full-time capacity, out of any of them, out of, Eddie George or Vrabel or any of them, I'd pick James. And I know you're going to say I'm crazy taking him over Vrabel, but James is younger, and I don't think Vrabel, I know Vrabel hated recruiting, so that's why I'm never too high on him coming back and being Ohio State's head coach. And I love Vrabes, and I thought that Tennessee firing him was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. David Cottrell, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you. If you have a question, toss it in the chat. Sean Krukka, thanks for the 10, brother. Appreciate you always being on here and being a regular every night. I guess cheaters do win. Sometimes they do. Sick to see that last night. I have zero faith the NCAA will do anything when the time comes. I keep reading bowl bans will not be part of any sanctions because of TV Bunny. Well, they banned us from a bowl game in 2012 when we could have went to the national championship. So, and I'm sure that they wanted Ohio State versus Notre Dame in the championship more than anything in the world, but that bowl ban smacked us. Nevada, I have more faith in the NCAA than most people do because they already took down their Final Four banners and they're pretty familiar with Michigan cheating because they've smacked them pretty hard. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what people are missing in this whole thing about the NCAA, people are like, well, the NCAA is becoming irrelevant, and that's kind of the point. The point is the NCAA is seeking their place in this new world order that's going on right now, and the only place for them is policemen, and stop the cheaters, stop the evildoers. And yeah, and we all hate the fact, we all are raised to, raise our kids and tell them that cheating's not right and cheating's not the way to go. And seeing cheaters win like Michigan did last night, really, I think it's a terrible message. It's contrary to anybody who's got good sense or good moral upbringing or anything like that. But this stuff generally works out in the end. And for Michigan, it's going to be. I think it's going to make it even better because they had their moment, and then it's going to be stripped from them, and then we can all laugh at them again. So no, I think the NCAA is going to do the right thing on this, not because it's the right thing, but let me tell you what, the broadcast guys do not care. The broadcast guys do not have a dog in this fight. They do not care because for them, do you really think that like the Michigan brand moves the dial any bigger than say Florida or LSU or no, they don't care. The teams are teams. It's all fundable to them. So it's like, hey, move one team out, move another team in. We don't care. But the NCAA is going to be going, man. We need to get these guys 2 level 1 infractions in the same year. Is literally the reason they put in the death penalty legislation when they did. It was for these occasions, these rare occasions when the same school commits 2 level 1 infractions in the same period of time. Michigan just pulled off that daily double. And they're going to get their prize here shortly, so just buckle up.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be ugly, and I'm really excited about it. Um, Raymond Mitchell, thanks for the 5. I want to be optimistic about next season. You should be. But I can't since we don't put emphasis on combo blocking, perimeter blocking, or hand placement. You obviously pay attention to what I say. I think there's going to be a big emphasis on combo blocking because they're terrible at it right now. But I also think that we're only going to go as far as the offensive line, so we have to figure out some of that stuff pretty quick here because again our blocking, we had our moments, and I thought we blocked Michigan better than Washington did, and I thought we were as good as Alabama, if not better than Alabama, at blocking Michigan's front. But Michigan had a good front. But I think that our perimeter blocking was trash. I think that we have to get our receivers to actually care and block and be less selfish. And again, you could say that I'm lying, call me an a-hole. I don't care. Watch the film, tell me I'm wrong because I'm not. And I think that that's something that if we want to go to the next level and truly become an explosive running team again, that has to happen because we're going to have 2 running backs that can take to the crib. But if we don't block any of the secondary guys, then there's no shot that it's ever going to break through the line. So, it's not because Trey Henderson's not fast. It's not because Judson isn't a breakaway guy. It's because we don't block him. So I think that that's going to be key. But I also think that having Will Howard, a quarterback who can run and is tough, is going to change the game. Ravia Tube, thanks for the 10. Can you elaborate on how did Judkins decide to come to OSU? What was it about OSU that he wanted to come here as opposed to another school, say Bama or Georgia? From what I was told, obviously, having 2 Ole Miss guys up here is huge. I think that, our NIL group was good. I also think that, with Trey being up here and Will Howard and this offense and frankly a dearth of people in the running back room. I mean, we've got Dallin Hayden, who we've treated as strangely as any player I've ever seen at Ohio State in terms of red shirt, don't red shirt, play, don't play, get him ready to go, then mothball him. It's been weird. And then you got a freshman in James Peoples. So I think he saw the opportunity where he's either going to be the horse or he's going to be split and work with Trey. I really think that he came up here to split work with Trey. I think Trey's coming back. I think that they're going to have a duo that's going to be ferocious. And I think that these guys are business guys. I think that they want to go somewhere where they're not going to get ran till the wheels fall off. They're not going to have to absorb 300 touches. He could keep around 200 touches and give Trey 200 touches and then give Dallin Hayden 50 to 100 and then give James Peoples, 30 or whatever. And away you go. But I think that a lot of these guys, they grew up in the Heat era where this little super team type thing. And I think these running backs are getting hip to the game that if you go somewhere where there's a bunch of you and you're not selfish and you kind of see the long-term trajectory of your career and going to the NFL and not being beat to crap, it's better for you. So I think that was a big reason as to why he came here. Nevada, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, no, just when it came on, when it first started breaking that he had interest, and I went to my agent guys, and they said that he wanted to play with another great back, and I wasn't sure if I believed it, but now I believe it. That was the first thing that came out of their mouth was he wanted to play somewhere else with another great back, and I think you're exactly right about load management. I think he wants to have a chance to win a national championship, but he doesn't want to have to do it by himself, and so Ohio State kind of fit the bill on it on everything. And like you said, having Davison and Taiwan up here, help put this thing over the line. But no, I think he wanted to play with another great back, and having Trey here to kind of complement that, help him out, really kind of fit what his objectives were for 2024.
Totally agree. JR's rankings, thanks for the deuce. Thoughts on Mark Helfrich as the new OC? I saw this coming up in the queue. I had to do some research. I don't think it's a possibility just because he hasn't coached since 19. I mean, he was with the Bears in 19, got fired. So he's been out for about 4 seasons, which is a long time for an OC. Honestly, it's kind of interesting that Chip Kelly didn't come after him. He was Chip's OC before he left for the Eagles and obviously got promoted to be the head coach the year we beat him. But I don't think it's a real option. Again, they were good on offense the year we played them. We smacked them. But, I mean, they had Mariota. He won the Heisman and the whole 9. But he went to the NFL and wasn't great with the Bears. So, I don't know. I think that, when you're out of it for 4 years, a lot of your recruiting connections evaporate. He's a West Coast guy from Oregon, was at Colorado. And he was in the league. So he doesn't really have the recruiting ties that I would want. Again, like when we hired Tom Herman, he had ties in Texas because he'd been down at Rice and he'd been down at Texas State and some of those other schools. And when he was at Iowa State, he was recruiting Texas a lot. So he had some built-in ties to Texas. Like I'd want, if I'm hiring a true OC, a super-powered OC, I want him to have big-time recruiting ties in Georgia, Texas, and Florida, period. And you better have schools you can walk into that are deep pools of talent that you could pull kids out of and bring them up to Ohio for Ohio State. 'Cause I think if you're going to get that big title, you need to be able to go recruit and you need to be able to bring guys in the door. And Tom Herman was excellent at that. This guy's been out since he hasn't coached college football since 18. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a long time to be out of the gig. Excuse me. I think it's 16. So he was at Oregon from 13 to 16, got fired at Oregon. So he hasn't coached in college in 7 years. So, again, a lot of head coaches change and whatever. So, I mean, you lose kind of everything when you haven't been in the game for that long. I don't even know if he'd be interested in it, but it's an interesting name just because of the Chip Kelly Oregon thing, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. That's a really interesting thought, but I don't think it's realistic. Troy Brewer, thanks for the deuce. If you have a question, toss in the chat. I see another one coming up from you. Chris S, thanks for the 20. Great show. Appreciate you, my man, as always. I'm getting really excited to see our Buckeyes offense next year. So am I. I think our offense is going to be incredible. Our offensive line didn't look great in the Cotton Bowl, but I have zero worries about them because they played well last year. Do you guys agree? Well, again, I have no idea what they were doing moving Matt Jones to center, where he was clearly not comfortable and didn't know the calls, and playing Enoch Vamahi at right guard. And again, Enoch is a very nice kid, so I do not like to crucify him or come off the top rope on the kid, but he's a fifth-year guy, and it's obviously very clear why he never played. Again, the only other game he started was the Michigan game the year before, and they pulled him. They pulled him in like the first quarter because he was so bad. So for whatever reason, they thought it would be a good idea to start him in this Missouri game. And maybe he practiced well, and when the lights turned on, he just froze. But he was a deer in the headlights out there. And again, I don't know what Carson Hinsman did. I know he did the podcast. I was told he was not suspended. I would have put Carson in at guard. I mean, Carson started 12 games. He blocked Michigan better than Washington guys did. So I don't know. That was, of all the bizarre things I've seen in the history of Ohio State, the offensive line for the Cotton Bowl is like right at the top of the list for me because Matt didn't know the calls. They didn't help him by changing the cadence. And then our guard, Enoch was as bad as I've seen. And again, I do not like crapping on Enoch. But, after about 2 drives, they should have said, yeah, this isn't for him. I'd put anybody in there. Anybody that's played guard in their lives could go in and try to be better than Enoch or protect the kid. If you're just dead set on playing him, then protect him. Turn the protection, do slides, again, it's hard to protect a guard more than a tackle, but again, it was awful what they did to that kid, and he shouldn't have been out there, but kind of is what it is. RavioTube, thanks for the 5. Also, is it true that James Laurinaitis is going to say GA for 1 more year to free up coaching space for someone else? I don't know where that came from. That is also one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I don't think that he wants to say he's a GA. Again, he's 37 years old. Like, he wants to go be a coach somewhere. He's not trying to be a GA. He did it for a year. He did it at Notre Dame as an analyst for a year, did it here for a year. So he knows what the life is, and he's ready to live the life, and his family's ready to live life. But, I heard that, and I was like, that is so stupid, because why would you want to bring in anyone else other than James when you need some young blood on the defensive side to recruit? So I do not think that is true. Nevada, your thoughts on that?
No, it's not true. It's just not. It's not true.
Yeah.
Not a guess. Not true. And I am very confident that Ryan Day is going to do the right thing. And by the end of this whole, shuffling, that Laurinaitis is going to be one of the 10 countable coaches for Ohio State. So hopefully this all resolves itself by the end of this, and I'm very confident that's what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, and it's not like James isn't a guy that's not going to have options. I mean, he could go be a position coach at a bunch of schools right now. So, I mean, they better figure it out. So I'm telling you, these dumb narratives that he wants to be a GA so that someone else can come in and coach instead of him is, again, I know where some of that comes from. A lot of it are dumb narratives that are put out by people in the Woody Haze. And we crush dumb narratives. Like that's all we do, you know. So when people put that out and you guys want the truth, come watch us because that's what we do. But yeah, he's not going to be a GA, so someone else can come in and have a real job and make real money. Troy Brewer, thanks for the deuce. Kirk, what can be done to improve our toughness? A lot of it has to do with recruiting. You got to recruit tougher kids, and you also have to let Mickey do his thing. You know, when Mickey's at his peak and he's really doing his thing, we're a tough outfit. Ryan Day has taken, he's kind of put Mickey on a leash where it's a lot softer than it used to be, and that's directly from people that are really in the know. And it's something that Mickey's not happy about. But I think that that's something Ryan's got to say, hey, let's get back to being tough. Because again, when we used to whoop Michigan, you gotta remember from 2001 to 2000, whatever it was, 21. I mean, Michigan beat us like 3 times, like 03, 11. That was it, actually, just 03 and 11. So the fickle year they beat us, and then 03 they beat us. But you know, from 01 to 21, I mean, we beat them every single year. And we were always the tougher team. That was always kind of our hallmark, is that we were the blue collar team. And I used to talk to Truss about this because, Truss was maybe the greatest historian in the history of the Ohio State Michigan game. He knew everything about Michigan and their upbringing. I mean, Truss is just a genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. And he said, the thing about us is they're kind of the wine and cheese crowd, and we're kind of the chain gang. We're the blue collar. They're the white collar. And I always used to like that. I was like, we're like the chain gang. I like that. And that's what we always were. And then in the last, since the COVID year, when they bailed on us and they didn't want to play us, they wanted nothing to do with us, they've turned and gotten way tougher, and they've been cheating too. But this year, I mean, they mauled, even after college starts, like they mauled teams. I mean, they ran for 300 yards in the national championship, and we got to get back to being the tougher team, because right now Michigan's tougher than we are, and that's got to change. And again, it could easily change. Jim Harbaugh goes, and if Sharon Moore's named the head coach, and they lose a bunch of their ancillary parts, and their strength coach is excellent as well. I mean, that plays a big role in what those guys are. But just watch their offensive line come off the ball. They're in 3 points. They combo block well. Like, it's not some sort of an accident that these guys are really good at running the ball. And then, Washington's defense was atrocious, and they can't fit the run, and they're not gap sound. So that's like a hot knife through butter all night. But again, I watched their technique, and frankly, I'm envious of it, because that's kind of what we used to look like, and we're not really there anymore. And we need to get back to that ASAP, because this year we will be dramatically more talented than Michigan. We'll have 2 outstanding running backs. Our quarterback is going to be a beast. Our receivers are going to be incredible. JJ coming in. I think our line's actually going to be good. But they got to get in. They got to get in that weight room. They got to start grinding, and they got to get way better. And there's no reason that they can't do it, because a lot of these guys are young guys, first-year starters, and they ain't going to be first-year starters anymore starting next year. And I think with our offense, if they can level up and get to the level that our defense was at, then why can't we win a national championship? I mean, we just watched Michigan beat a terrible Washington team, and that Washington team everyone thought was amazing because they beat Oregon. So I don't know how good Oregon is, but those guys got to see a big time nasty Big Ten team like Michigan, and they wilted. And I think that's what's going to happen when they see Ohio State next year. But I think a lot of it's just you got to recruit more toughness, because we're too much into the 7-on-7 circuit, and I don't think we get enough of the gritty kids anymore. Pooh Beard 12 Scoop Ultra member, appreciate you, brother. From a buddy in North Carolina regarding the holding disparities. Watch a lot of ACC games, and the ACC refs are not capable of conspiracy. They're just sort of winging it, and they barely know the rules of the game. That is interesting. Nevada, what did you think of the officiating last night? Because like Pac-Man Jones was tweeting about it. Tebow was tweeting about it. So I was watching it during our watch party, and I was like, this is really bad. And like, I couldn't believe some of the holds, because it wasn't like it was just like a little tug. It was like the jersey ripped across the chest, and you could see the undershirt. Like, that's really bad. And they weren't getting called. But your thoughts on the officiating last night?
Well, look, games generally fall into 2 buckets. The buckets where the referees call everything, and we've all seen those games where there's like a flag on every play, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on with that? Or the ones where they don't call anything. And I'm okay with either one, as long as that's kind of what you're doing. But Washington's down 7, fourth quarter, hits that big pass,
Oh my God.
and they get called on that holding penalty, and then Michigan comes back the next drive, and McCarthy hits the tight end for that big pass, and the Washington guy gets yanked down to the ground, and they don't call it. And that's the stuff I think that's frustrating. It's not so much what they called, it's the fact that they weren't consistent and they were all over the board. And at the biggest moment for Washington, when Washington made that huge play, they negated it with a penalty. And after keeping the flags in their pockets all game, that's what frustrates me. And I agree with the poster. I just think it's incompetence, and that's it's been a kind of a hallmark of officiating this entire year. Has been about how bad it is, and people always want to go to it's rigged, it's Vegas, it's just bad officiating. And the guy that threw that flag at that moment literally changed the game. I mean, because that was the ball game right there. And I hate to see it when that happens, because I thought Michigan was on the ropes at that moment. I think if Washington had punched it in and tied it up, I think Washington's played so many tight games. I think that would have been the end for Michigan, but it didn't happen, so they won. And dude, I'm over 2023. I'm on to 2024, and it doesn't matter. No matter what happened last night, we're on to 2024, and we're loaded and we're ready to go. And let's give me some spring football. It's right around the corner, so let's get at it.
Bill Belichick, aka Nevadabuck, he's on to Akron. So we open
yes,
up.
Sir.
Eric Peterson, thanks for the 20. Appreciate you, brother. Best guess for Laurinaitis, linebacker coach, yes, or special teams coach. I think he could do both. He should be linebacker / special teams coordinator. Looks better on his business card. We need his toughness as a full-time coach and as a beast on the recruiting trail. Totally agree. With Heartline Laurinaitis today recruiting, players coming back were supposed to go on a run. I think that's a grand slam home run. I think like if Ryan wants an injection of good morale, because the thing about Ryan, and I worked for Urban, and Urban is one of the greatest geniuses in the history of college football. And he said, when the former players turn on you, that's when you're done. And with Ryan, man, our former players have been vicious towards him post Cotton Bowl. Like Tyvis Powell went off on him and Heartline. Like a lot of these guys they're blasting Ryan. And like when the former players turn, that's kind of when you're at kind of the end of the line. But like, you make James a coach, then all of a sudden I think it turns it a little bit. Again, I think Ryan's the guy for the job. I'd take him over Vrabel, over anybody. But I think, you put James in, you get a guy who really knows Ohio State. He was successful at Ohio State. Fantastic player. Like, again, I can't imagine a former player that has a bad word to say about James. He was that respected as a leader and as a captain and as a player. So I think he's the guy for the job, and I think that he would absolutely murder it in recruiting. Like, I think he'd do incredible things as a recruiter on the road. And honestly, in special teams, I think he'd be an upgrade as a special teams coordinator. Because again, he played it. He was in the league for 10 years. He played special teams, and James is a guy who had above average physical traits, but he was just absolutely exceptional mentally in terms of knowing the game, knowing scheme, studying the game. And those are the attributes that make a great coach. Because like there's some guys that they're just so physically gifted that they can just crush everybody. They don't really need to know the game. But James is the guy that, he really had to know the game to be as phenomenal as he was. And I think that that's why he'd be a huge asset as a coach. And again, you can ask Tommy and Still, like, he changed the game for those guys. I mean, they really could understand it looking through his eyes, and it was a little bit different. All right. Russ Atkins, 6 of the 5. The reason the talk of JL, not sure came from the Oracle on Scoop. That is why so many believe it. Oracle, he mentioned that because there were people in the athletic department that say that, and I was like, I don't, again, I know the Oracle really well. He has got great sources in the athletic department and nationally, but whoever say that in the athletic department is crazy, and again, I don't like going against our own guys, but he was wrong on that. And whoever said that in the athletic department, who's the source, is wrong on that. And I don't know why you'd ever say that about a guy like James, who's working like crazy and wants to be a coach. Nevada, you got any thoughts on that?
No, and that's the beauty of doing this business is we all have different sources and we all talk to different people. And we've talked about this before. You and I could sit at a practice and have very different opinions on watching the exact same practice. And same thing like this, Oracle talks to people and the Woody Hayes stuff comes out. And sometimes I hear stuff and I'm just like, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. I think that's narrative. I think that's spin. And somebody may have a different opinion on it. That's okay, but that's why we're all here to kind of go at each other and kind of get to the truth. But on this one, I don't think that's right. And it's been, like I said, that's been more than the Oracle. If that's the Oracle, then the Oracle's been the source of about 50 different podcasts, which is probably true. That's probably where these guys get most of their material. But I've heard this all over the internet from
Yeah.
people that are supposedly in the know they keep saying this, and I'm just like, it's not right. So whenever you hear it that many times, it's being put out by Ohio State, and then you just got to figure out what's the reason. Why are they putting this out? Are they putting this out to kind of, prepare the field for if he doesn't get a job, they can be like, oh, well, we're under the impression that James didn't want to work here, or
Oh yeah,
James goes.
That's what it is. I mean, it's like
that's got to be what it is.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, because there's always these really dumb narratives that come out of the Woody Hayes by people that are unscrupulous, and they'll say, oh, James, we weren't sure if he really wanted to coach. Oh, we weren't sure if he was committed to the hours or if he really wanted to. I'm like, dude, he's been coaching for 2 years. He's made pinto beans for 2 years. He's 37. Like, he doesn't need to work, but he's there to work, and he wants to. If he's gonna work, he wants to be compensated for his time, and he wants to run the show. He doesn't want a bunch of guys that don't have anywhere near his credentials to be. His life, it depends on some of those guys in the room, and he's better than almost all of them. So why not give him a seat at the table? Because again, he's in one of the ancillary seats. He's not sitting at the main staff table. I've sat in those seats. It sucks. When there's guys in that room that that you're better than, you want to take their jobs. And I think James deserves one of those jobs because, frankly, I think he'd be a huge asset. And some of those guys in that room, they don't hold their weight, and they're there because they're teachers' pets or for whatever reason. And I think you got to get James in there and let him go to work. Gio did it 42. Thanks for the 5, brother. Cory Dennis, Parker Fleming have to go. Totally agree. Not on Cory. Cory's the one that I think, and again, I might get slaughtered for this because he might get whacked tomorrow, but that's the one that's going to be real tricky because you fire Urban Meyer's son-in-law, then good luck to you. Parker absolutely has to go. Little Animal needs to be promoted ASAP. I agree. I think Ryan Day will get it done. Yeah, I think he will too. Parker, our special teams are atrocious this year, and it looks more and more like that extra year extension was to kind of take care of his family and his kids when they whacked him. Again, $500,000. It seems like a lot of money, but for Ohio State, it's not. I mean, Jimbo Fisher just got like a $93 million buyout. So, again, it was a dumb extension. I have no idea why they did it. Because anytime you're bidding against yourself, you don't really need to do that. But yeah, James needs to be put on staff like yesterday. Appreciate you, brother. That was a great question. David Cottrell, thanks for the 5. If you have a question, toss that in the chat. AZ King, thanks for the 5. Henderson, 446 carries in 3 years. Judkins, 545 in 2 years. Homie wants to save himself. Again, man, I'm telling you, you look at the Heat when they had Bosch and Wade and LeBron, like these guys want to team up and they want to, like I said last night to Nevada when we were talking offline, like it's like the Detroit Lions. Like they signed David Montgomery, who had a great year and scored a zillion touchdowns, and then they draft Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. And then, when Montgomery gets hurt, Gibbs carries the load. But when they're at their optimal functioning, they're both in the game. They're both fresh. They both get their 15, 20 touches. And away you go. And I think that's what, these kids are very, very cognizant of their workload. They're very cognizant of how many hits they take in game. So again, I think that there was something to that. I think that, if you're this kid, again, when you're running back, it doesn't matter if you start. I mean, like if you play and you put up numbers and you get your touches, like it's fine. Like, I mean, if this kid gets 15 touches a game and he goes for 80 to 100 yards and he runs a 4.4, then he can be a first round pick. Like, why not? Same with Trey. Like, I mean, the numbers are great if you're trying to win the Doak Walker, but these guys are trying to go to the league and get drafted high and have as little wear and tear on the tires as possible. And when you come to Ohio State, it's like I always tell these guys, I'm like, look, if I'm a running back, the only team in the world I want to play for is Ohio State because they're always going to have 5-star wide receivers. So you can't load the box when you've got J.J. Smith or, like last year we had Marvin and Mecca, Tate, and it's like you can't just crowd the box or you're going to get torched. And then you throw in Will Howard, who can run and run really well, and he's tough. And you run read option with that guy, oh my God, terrifying. But yeah, I agree. I think that there's something to load management with these running backs, and that's not some cosmic thing. I think that these guys, they see how beat up these guys get when they get a ton of carries in college and they get to the league and the wheels kind of fall off and then they don't get a second deal. So any thoughts on that, Nevada?
No, I think that's 100% right. I think the running quarterback thing can't be emphasized enough, though. Having Will Howard is going to make all the difference in the world for Ohio State. And we haven't had that running quarterback dimension for years since Fields, and it's going to be great to see it back and I think it's going to make a big difference for everybody.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be awesome to watch. Brian Laguerre, thanks for the 5. Michigan is the first team since 01 Miami to lead every game at the half. First defense ever to not allow more than 24 points in any game. S&P Plus ranks them the best ever. See, I just, I think that they had a soft schedule. I don't think we played our worst game against those guys, and we still scored 24. We threw a pick 6 against them, which ended up being the difference in the game. It wasn't a pick 6, but they got tackled on like the 3-yard line or whatever. And I think that they had an easy road. I really do. Like that Washington team wasn't great. Again, they didn't get to play, Florida or LSU. They played an okay Bama team, not a great Bama team. Bama, they didn't have like a Heisman running back like they used to have. They didn't have a superstar wide receiver. Quarterback was okay, good athlete, and their O-line was atrocious for Alabama standards. So, it was Michigan. I mean, credit. You can only play what they put in front of you. They won 50-0. They won the national championship. Credit where credit's due, but are they one of the best teams ever? There's no chance. That 01 Miami team would have dog walked them with Andre Johnson and that corner. Will Johnson.
Wait a second. Best team ever. I mean, literally worst national champion in the past.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, they're worst terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I mean, look, Ohio State defense is literally got the same defense as Michigan, within like half a point, within 10 yards per game.
No.
And we're not considering this defense as like one of the greatest defenses of all time. We played a tougher schedule than Michigan did. But it's like, I mean, it was fine. But no, this Michigan team is the worst national champion. I would love to see the 84 BYU team with Ty Detmer play against this group, and it would be some 12-10 game or so, whatever. Who even knows? But we could call it the horrible bowl or something like that. But yeah, no, this Michigan best ever. Give me a freaking break. This what a mediocre national. I mean, I knew 2023 was down, but the fact that Michigan won the national championship is like they're the worst national champion in my lifetime, and I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, I mean, like if you put them against like the 2020 Alabama team that shredded us, like, dude, like with Devontae Smith, we had like 300 yards in the first half against us. Like Henry Ruggs had a broken leg, and Najee Harris. Like, I mean, that team would have waxed this Michigan team because they would have stopped them on defense. Sean Krutka, thanks for the deuce. If Dennis is back, Day isn't serious about winning. If you put a gun to my head, I don't think Cory's back. It hurts me because I love Cory. I've known Cory for a long time since he was an intern there. But his contract's up, and I think Ryan really wants to hire a head coach for the offense. This is number one goal on his list is to get a Jim Knowles for the offense. And if you do that, it's probably going to be the guy who's going to be the quarterback coach, and that's Cory's seat right now. So it'll be interesting. But again, the politics with Cory is way different than any other coach because it's Urban Meyer's son-in-law, man, and he lives here, and Nicky Meyer lives here, and that's a tricky one. So I'd tread lightly if I was Ryan. DW, thanks for the deuce. Why not Carter Smith from Indy for Enoch? Well, Carter's an interesting case because he wanted to come here. We had no interest in him, which was interesting. He got a huge haul in NIL from Indiana. It was like 40% of their total NIL take, which I don't know what that number is going to Carter Smith to get him to come back. But, I I know like a school like Ole Miss would probably offer him 300-400 grand to go there. So whatever Indiana offer him is probably more. But I think that when you bring in a Carter Smith, you'd lose Tigra, you'd lose George Fitzpatrick, you'd lose 3 or 4 guys probably that are in that same class that are like, why did you recruit me? And the difference between Carter Smith and Tigra is that Carter went to a lesser program where he'd start earlier, and Tigra came here where he's sitting behind guys like Josh Fryer that are 4th-year guys, older guys. So there's like that development factor. So why would you say, well, you didn't like him 2 years ago, why do you like him now instead of me? And chase guys out of the room. So again, that's kind of the culture thing. I think Carter's a nice player. I don't think he's great. I think that when they played us, they ran the ball like crazy and shortened the game and protected him. But he had a nice year, and again, he's got potential to be an NFL tackle one day. But I think that Ohio State didn't think they were getting a huge upgrade in getting him. So again, everything will be will kind of tell the tale. Eric Peterson, thanks for the 5. How was your first wrestling match? It was amazing. I don't know if you guys have ever been to a wrestling match at the Cavelli Center, but it is incredible. It was awesome when Nick Feldman got the heavyweight victory and clinched the team victory with 25 seconds left. It was badass. Totally agree. Again, if you guys haven't been to a wrestling match, go out and support Tom Ryan. I mean, that program is unbelievable. The kids are awesome. It was on Big Ten Network. They were wrestling Cornell. It came down to literally the last 30 seconds in the heavyweight. Got the points to win, and the place erupted. It was exceptionally loud. It was an awesome environment. Standing room only crowd, and it was really cool. Again, like I said, shout out Johnny Buckeye, John Lorman, who is on our board. He took me. He's a great dude, big wrestling donor. But yeah, Ohio State wrestling is awesome, and I've never been to one. I don't know much about wrestling other than I know it's really hard, and those guys are really tough, and you're kind of out there by yourself, and you got to be a beast to do it. But I really enjoyed it, and I respect it, and it was fun. Nevada, have you been to many? I know your one son was a wrestler. Have you been to a ton of wrestling matches at like a collegiate level?
Not at the collegiate level, but like I said, went through high school wrestling with the son who wasn't a great wrestler, but man, he tried hard, and it was so much fun. And like you said, it takes a lot of courage to go out there and wrestle because it's just you one-on-one and everybody's watching. The Feldman match was fun. It was kind of reminiscent of the if you haven't had a chance on YouTube, if you're a wrestling fan, you've already seen it, but you're not a wrestling fan, go watch Gable Stevenson's gold medal match in the Olympics, where he needed two takedowns in the last 8 seconds to win the match, to win the gold medal. And so he takes the guy down, lets him up, and then takes him down again with like 0.1 second to go to win the gold medal. Now that was that when I watched that one, man, I was up and screaming for that one. That's for the Olympic gold medal. You need 2 takedowns, and he got them both. So that's pretty crazy. But no, wrestling's a great sport, and anybody who does that at any level, as far as I'm concerned, is a bad man, because the wrestlers, even at my little high school that we weren't a great wrestling program, were always the toughest, baddest dudes at the school, and I want no part of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. They're awesome. Jeff Rittenhouse, thanks for the 5. Kirk, if you put Quinshon and Trey split out in the wheel route, I think that'd be amazing. I think that those guys are both they're going to be scary, man. You get them on a will linebacker, those guys can both run and catch it, and I think that that's something that I still want to see more of, is Trey and Quinshon catching the ball. I mean, 'cause I think that that's something we don't do enough of. Nevada, I already know your feelings on that. I don't even need to ask. You're the king of the screen. D Sonny, thanks for the 5, brother. Appreciate you. When you bring in a veteran quarterback like Howard, how much easier is it for him to learn a new playbook and scheme over a freshman? I think that the biggest thing is that they're here now, so this is a time of year where you can really get in with the coaches and learn the playbook, and you could do it at a kind of a slow, not a slow pace, but like a less hyperactive pace, as opposed to showing up for spring ball or fall ball. I think it's easier for him to learn because he probably knows a lot of the concepts, because they probably have some similar concepts to Casey. I'm sure it's not all the same. He's got to learn the verbiage, but he can get in there and get with Ryan Day and watch film and get cut-ups put on his iPad and go through the progressions and draw it on the grease board and go out and throw with Emeka and JJ and Brandon Ennis and Tate and those guys, and really start to get it to slow down, learn the protections, work with the line. I think that when you've learned playbooks, it's a lot easier to relearn new ones as opposed to if you've never learned one. Like if you're coming from high school and you've got a pretty simple playbook. So I think he'll do great things. I think the biggest thing though is that being here now and you've got spring football starts usually Marchish, so you've got literally 3 months to learn it, and you can learn anything in 3 months. So I'm really excited to see what he can do as the QB1 for the Bucks. Gio, I appreciate you, my man. Gio did it. 42. Thank you again. Kirk, how about the entire offensive line group spend a week with Latrell's Bentley at his offensive line academy? That'll be tough for after spending time with LB. Well, if they get out to Arizona for a week, which they can do with online classes, I think that'd be amazing. It'd be really smart. Latrell's is a student of the game. That guy studied offensive line more than any human being on earth, not just from a film perspective, but biomechanics and how to train and how to eat and just everything. I mean, he puts guys on diets, man. He makes them look amazing. Teaches them how to work, in the off season, in season. He's made guys a gazillion dollars just off of his training methods, and he's a guy that I wish that he was around when I was in the league because he changed lives. He's a guy that I would have studied and I would have basically lived with him at his gym because he really does good work. But I think that'd be a fantastic thing. And if I was Ryan Day, I'd send those guys out there on spring break. D Sunny, thanks for the 5. When you bring in a vet, it looks like you double did that one. Thanks for the 5 again. Appreciate you. But it's the same question. If you have another question, D Sunny, toss it in there and I'll answer it. Because I think you accidentally hit send twice. Rick Cluse, Kirk, the joke of Harbaugh's "we are innocent" was the worst excuse I've ever heard. Yeah, I think that he's just trying to say that as his final words before he takes off to the Chargers. What do you think the NCAA is going to do to these cheaters? Nevada, what are they going to do to the cheaters?
Well, first of all, and I'm not playing here. This was like real. Like I didn't watch I saw like the thing about I'm innocent or something. So can somebody paraphrase for me what he said? Because I couldn't bring myself to watch any of that stuff because I really literally wanted to vomit. So what was he claiming? Like it didn't happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, he like said, we're innocent, and it was never hard for us to say we were innocent because we knew we were innocent. So we were innocent. No, I mean literally, like it was like that. Like we never had any worries because we've been innocent the whole time. So I mean, yeah.
Well,
it was wild.
The NCAA and the Big Ten have got to love that. You know what I'm saying? Because what you're looking for from these things is cooperation and contrition. And I would say that comment right there represents the opposite of cooperation.
Or of course.
So no, I think when it comes down, like I said, it's going to be show cause, it's going to be vacated wins, it's going to be scholarship reductions, and it's going to be title vacation. That's what I think is going to happen. I'm pretty confident on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brian Laguerre, thanks for the 5. The 14 OSU team lost to a 6-win team yesterday. That was an awful loss. And almost lost to a trash Michigan team. I mean, they beat them 42-28, and then they beat Wisconsin 59-0. They beat the number 1 Alabama team. And that Alabama team was much better than this year's Alabama team. They had a real offensive line, first-round left tackle, Derrick Henry, Amari Cooper. Like, this Alabama team wasn't anywhere near that. And I don't know how the 14 Ohio State team would ever lose to that Michigan team last night. Because I think we'd stop the run, and I think we'd run it on them. But again, that's just my opinion. I mean, it's for debate because you'll never see those two teams line up and actually play. But I think the 14 Ohio State team would dog walk that team from last night. Because just look at the talent on the team. I mean, we had Ezekiel Elliott, they had Blake Corum. Like, that's not close. I mean, Cardell and JJ, probably JJ. O-line's pretty similar. Our O-line was balling by the end of the season there. Our defense was much better than theirs, in my opinion. But again, I'm always up for debates. But, we had Joey Bosa. I don't know who their best D-lineman is. They had the good D tackle, 55. But, we had Mike Bennett. We had Adolphus. We had Darren Lee. We had first rounders all over the board on that defense. So I just thought we had a more talented team. Will Urban drop Ryan from friend list for Dennis leaving? It would not be good for Ryan. I'll just leave it at that. But it would be, he fires son-in-law and then, everyone's going to pick up and move. I don't think it would be fantastic unless you've got a really good exit strategy or.
Yeah, but let's just talk about that just for a second because
Sure.
I don't want to belabor this, but we've talked earlier. If you've been listening to the program, you've heard about the narrative stuff. Okay, well, let me give you the kind of the narrative stuff. Oh, Cory Dennis missed a meeting with these coaches or the quarterbacks, and he wasn't there, and he didn't tell anybody, and he was out at a country concert and this and that. Like that's the kind of stuff that drives people like Urban Meyer up the wall because he's like, no, there's more to that story. It wasn't just that Cory went out and was drinking Lone Star beer and forgot a meeting or something like that. So it's like that's the kind of stuff when it comes out, he feels like Cory's being made a scapegoat, and then you go and you fire him, and now you got issues right now because he doesn't. It's not about the firing; it's about the scapegoating, and I think that's where you're going to run afoul of Meyer potentially, and that's where it could get messy. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, and also who's leaking that to the media, and why is the media running with that? Exactly. Stuff like that's supposed to be handled internally. Urban had a very strict no media policy back in the day, and he said he literally said if you're Tim May's friend, then you're not going to be on the staff. And I was like, ooh, that ain't good. That was Urban. I mean, if you want to go pillow talk to the media, you're gone. But there's some guys in that building that have made it into an art form, and they've weaponized the state media, and they use it against coaches all the time, and I can see right through it. And that's the difference. Is like, we bring the truth, and everybody else brings the narratives that are supposed to be pushed, and that's why we're the most popular podcast because we're the most honest. Because again, we can't be controlled by those guys. Because look, we see through the crap, and there's a lot of crap that gets told to you guys, and it just makes me want to run to the microphone and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. Brian, thanks for the deuce. Michigan had the largest margin of victory in the BCS era. Yeah, but they played the worst schedule like I've ever seen. I mean, they didn't play anybody all year except us, and then they did great. And they did good in the playoffs. Again, I'm not taking anything away from them. They went 15-0. Great, whatever. But I just don't think they're better than the 14 Ohio State team. I really don't. I think a lot of these teams that won national championships.
The 14 Ohio State team would have beat them by 4 touchdowns last night. Are you kidding me? The 14 Ohio State team beat a real Alabama team and then crushed a really good Oregon team. This is a mediocre. I don't even. There's got to be a worse word for mediocre. Just terrible national champion, untalented national champion. This isn't a great Michigan team. I can think of 3 or 4 other. The 06 Michigan team would have beat this one like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, absolutely. We can stop the run.
I mean, come on. I'm talking about the 06 Michigan team. How good was the 06 Michigan team compared to this year's Michigan team?
They just had better players.
They had better players.
They had Chad Henne, 2nd round pick. Jake Long, 1st overall pick. Manningham. David Harris was like a 10-year captain of the New York Jets. Alan Branch, Woodley. I mean, those are like real dudes. Like dudes that were just big-time NFL draft picks. They didn't have Marlon Jackson. They had Leon Hall, 1st round pick corner. Morgan Trent was an NFL guy. I mean, the whole team was just, Prescott Burgess, Sean Crable, all NFL guys, all mid-round picks, 1st round picks, 2nd round picks. I mean, maybe this Michigan team will be loaded in the NFL draft. I don't know who their superstars are. And again, I could be dead wrong. You guys would be like, yep, I told you, Kirk, but I don't see it. Tom Gumbari, thanks for the 5. Kirk, any feedback on how JT Barrett is doing as coach in the league? I think he's doing fantastic. And the thing that's going to be interesting is if their OC, I think his name's Ben, is it Ben Johnson or something? Ben Johnson was the sprinter from Canada. But whatever his name is, their OC is like one of the hot guys for head coaching vacancies. It'll be interesting to see if JT goes with him and becomes a full-time quarterbacks coach or if he gets elevated in Detroit. But he's doing great work. Possible QB coach here. I would love that. I don't know if he could do that and be the head coach of the offense. I feel like Ryan wants a guy who's got play calling experience, and he's done excellent work as a play caller. JT has not called a game yet, so I'm not saying that eliminates him, but I think that what Ryan wants is a guy that can turn the film on, show some games where he's beaten teams that are really good and say, this is what I call, this is why I called it. Ryan can sit there and interview him, listen to it, and say, okay, this is the guy I want. And again, when you haven't called plays, and again, this is something like with Brian Hartline, like when you haven't called plays, you're kind of at that ceiling where you got to go prove you can call plays somewhere. And again, it's not easy to do. It's really hard to do. And I think that Ryan really wants a play caller as his next OC. Appreciate you, everyone listening. Hit the like button. We got to get Tinkerbuck out of the ground. I think she's down in the ground after last night, but there's always 2024 Tinkerbuck. We have to reincarnate Tinkerbuck. Tinkerbuck's kind of like Uga. Like when one of the Georgia Bulldogs dies, they name it like Uga 7 and Uga 8. So we're gonna be on like Tinkerbuck 2 is gonna be the new Tinkerbuck.
Tinkerbuck had a heck of a game last night. Tinkerbuck brought us back from the edge while you guys were losing faith.
The doldrums.
But yeah, Tinkerbuck did her job.
J Dolan 5. I love this. The Cheaters up north will have less than 1,000 wins. Yes, they will. It'll be amazing once they get hit. Brian, appreciate the deuce. 14 Bama lost to Ole Miss and didn't beat that UGA. Okay. I still think Ohio State's 14 team would have beat Michigan. Paul Moss, thanks for the 5. I hope we take a strong look at Scott Frost as OC. I don't know. 6 wins for the Cheaters up north versus OSU since 2000. Why don't we go after higher rated place kickers in person? That is a great question. Scott Frost is I'm very tight with one of the major Nebraska donors. He had a very, very tumultuous day. I'll put it lightly. I know some of the inside scoop on what went down at Nebraska, and I'd steer clear of Scott Frost. And again, when they hired him, I thought he was going to be a juggernaut just because of what he did at Central Florida. But he was a train wreck. And I figured at Nebraska that would be his deal. But I don't know. Scott Frost, he doesn't have a job right now, so there's probably a reason for that. And again, I don't think that's the guy that Ryan wants to throw the keys to the car, especially when he's in a year as critical as this. Sean Kritka, thanks for the 5. Poor Brian, looking for OSU fans to validate the Cheaters up north. Also, Bama beat OSU by 28, so not sure where he's getting the largest margin of victory from. Yeah, I agree. I like I said, I don't see it in this Michigan team. I really don't. John Rawlings, appreciate you, man. Thanks for the 5. There you go. Here we go, Nevada. Tennessee's pretty got 6 years show cause. Do you think UM did worse? Thanks, Twisted Buckeye Nation, Port Charlotte, Florida. That's like Inglewood. Shout out Inglewood. Shout out Southwest Florida. A lot of good Buckeyes in Fort Myers and Naples. Nevada, do you think he gets worse than Pruitt, your boy?
Man, 6 years is a long time, but what happened was way worse. I mean, what did Pruitt do? I mean, go read the notice of infraction. All this stuff's online. It was funny. We had a poster today say, I just went back. I spent 5 minutes and I went back and I read the Big Ten letter to Michigan, and now I feel a lot better about it because, wow, they really do have a lot of stuff on them. I'm like, man, educate yourself, guys. It's all online. I mean, what Pruitt did is he gave money in Chick-fil-A bells. That's it. He gave money. Michigan funded the largest on-field and most sophisticated on-field cheating scandal in college football history. Directly went to competitive advantage. Affected, just had far-reaching implications on players, on player safety, on NFL draft picks, on legacy. I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, will it be worse? I don't know. Was it worse? Exponentially worse. So, Pruitt got 6 years. And so that's why people, it's not going to be a big deal. Oh, it's going to be a big deal, and it's coming, and not that far away. So buckle up.
No, I totally agree. Well, we've been grinding for about 90. Brian, you're loving this Michigan stuff. Every metric says you're wrong. Well, except for my eyes, and I trust my eyes more than dumb stats that don't mean anything when you play nobody. Facts versus opinion. Thanks for the deuce again. Largest average margin of victory though through a season is 25 plus. Yeah, but look at who they played. Their schedule's trash. So again, that's just my opinion. And again, you're allowed to have yours, but I don't think that this is a great national championship team. And again, call me a hater, call me Bobby Buckeye, whatever, but I don't see the star power on this team. Did they win? Yeah, of course. But did they beat like vintage, or did they beat the 21? If this team would have played the Georgia team from 2 years ago, Georgia would have dog walked these guys. Like when they had that defense that they had 2 years ago, they would have killed these guys. Because it would have been like Styles make fights, like try running on that Georgia team 2 years ago. But they didn't see that Georgia team. So, again, I think that when they played like some really good national championship teams, this Michigan team gets crushed. But they played the perfect team in the championship. They played Washington, who was one of the worst rush defenses in the country. And Michigan's one of the best running teams in the country. And after a quarter, you could tell this is going to be a long night for the Huskies. Well, Nevada, we can wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts as we get to the end of the video?
Yeah, Michigan is the most undeserving and most mediocre national champion in the past 40 years. And I really believe, I think they had every break go their way this year, and that's great. But it's over. It's going to be vacated, and the Michigan fans can put all their crappy gear back into mothballs and crawl back into the holes from whence they came. And I'm telling you that's going to happen in March, April. You're not going to be nearly as many of them around. You see the vermin kind of scattering around right now. It's like turning the lights on, and then those roaches just like run back to the corners. That's going to happen in March, April, when the NCAA shines the light on the Michigan program. Hail to the victors, and I want to see that game, the dream game. We have to play that on Madden or NCAA or whatever. 1984 BYU versus 2023 Michigan in the Battle of the Horribles.
Should we bring back Scoop Dreams just for that? Ty Detmer versus JJ McCarthy.
Let's do it.
That'd be amazing.
We got to get JJ McCarthy like superhuman 4.4 speed though.
Yeah, and we also have to have him do his feng shui in front of the goalposts before every game.
What a clown. What a clown.
Your boy. Buckeye won. Thanks for the deuce. All I'm saying is the refs better get their rings. Hey, man, they were out there for it. They were having a good time. So those guys, I hope those guys got to go to Treasures in Houston or the men's club, whatever you call it, Nevada. That'd be a good time. The men's club. Home of steaks and shakes.
Kick-ass steaks. Yeah.
All right. Wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys kicking it with us as always. Thanks for kicking it with us during the watch party. In the comments, I'd love your comments on the watch party. Do you want us to do more watch parties? Again, we're kicking that around. They're really fun to do, and we love kicking it with you guys. So if you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click the little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys each and every night tuning in with us, kicking it with us, because this is always a highlight of our night. So we always love your questions. Again, thanks for the fantastic questions, the great super chats, the support, being a Scoop Ultra member. It all adds up, and we really appreciate you guys so much. So in the comments, shout out which transfer or recruit are you most excited to watch this year? Because there's some great ones this year. I mean, you get Quinshon Judkins, you get Will Howard, JJ Smith. I mean, there's some big Edric Houston. Put in the comments who you want to see. And also shout out where you guys are watching from. I love to see where you guys are tuning in from, as always. So shout out to my Ohio people, my Southern Ohio boys, my Florida folks, Texas, Georgia, California, all over the place. Thank you guys for tuning in, as always. That being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We will catch up with you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a good night. Go Bucks.